Hey YouTube, welcome back to Dwayne's World. So here we are, it's part 3 of our spring lawn prep. You want to see how it's going to end? Well, you better stay tuned. All right, so welcome back to season 4, episode 6 here on Dwayne's World. And for those of you that have been following along, this is part 3 of the lawn spring prep that I'm doing here on Dwayne's World, really featuring my California Trimmer Catalyst. Now in part 1, if you remember, we did the Verticut, and I was very, very happy on how well the Verticut cartridge worked on the California Trimmer Catalyst, and do not regret purchasing that cartridge because it definitely is going to be a game changer. But what also helped tremendously was the Scarifying cartridge, which you guys saw in part 2. And that really helped get out all the dead debris that was in my lawn, or the majority of it. It really helped me get ready for part 3, where I'll be doing a cleanup pass and throwing down that very much needed Preemergent. But before we get into that, let me give you guys a quick update here on my front lawn. Because you guys may remember, when I used the Catalyst, I threw down some PGF Complete. So let me show you guys what it looks like currently. But unfortunately, there's something that happened. So with that, let me go ahead and show you guys what I'm talking about. All right, so here we are. Now, I'm gonna let you guys be the judge. What do you guys think of that color? Go ahead and comment down below. So I'm absolutely interested to see what you guys think. What do you think of that stripe action? What do you guys think? Was the overseeding a success this year? Now, let me come around this side here because the stripe action may not be showing through as well, just because of the fact that the sun is on the opposite side. But I hope you guys are able to get a pretty good idea of how good the lawn is looking thus far. Now, I did mention there are some problems, and let me go ahead and show you guys what I mean. If we come down here, if you notice, there's some yellowing here, a little bit right here, a little bit right here, and here, and here, here, and here. Now, what do you guys think happened? Well, if you look, they're footsteps. It's because of all the delivery services that come out to my house. I gotta tell you guys, me just like you, I'm sure, are very grateful of all the delivery services that we can take advantage of in this day and age. But I gotta tell you, if it was me that was the one running it all, make sure that I would have in my training program, do not step on people's grass. Because that's what happens. But kidding aside, it's just grass, right? It's gonna grow back. So with that, let's go ahead and continue on with the rest of this video. All right guys, so I'm gonna do something a little bit different than what I told you guys in my last video. You know, my plan was to be able to do a cleanup pass, and that way, after I do that cleanup pass, I'll be able to throw down my Preemergent. However, I am not going to be able to do that cleanup pass just simply because of the fact I have no more space in my trash can. It's only been about a day or two since I did that Scarify that you guys saw in video. And now, I was just getting ready to throw down that Preemergent, and look what happens. It's starting to rain. Look at all those clouds. Oh my goodness. I actually can feel it right now. So I'm debating whether or not I should actually throw down that Preemergent right now, because it's really not raining hard. But I don't know. Probably a bad idea, don't you think? Well, I'm probably gonna have to do. I have to wait a day. Now, hopefully we don't get too much rain, so that way I'm able to actually throw down my Preemergent probably tomorrow. But the issue that I have is if it does rain a lot, and it rained the other day, you do not want the ground oversaturated with moisture. You do want it to be a little bit dry, so that way when you throw down your Preemergent and you water it in, it's able to really get down into the roots. And when it's too much water on the surface, or there's too much water content within the soil, it's going to make it that much more difficult for that Preemergent to be able to go to work. So I'm kind of taking a gamble, even by throwing it down tomorrow. But you know what? I stuck a probe in the ground. I'll show you guys what that looks like right now. It's at 55 degrees. When I use the website to kind of tell what the average temperature is in the area, it's 55 degrees with the soil temperature. You know, I'm about a week or 2 weeks earlier than I was last year. The only reason I can think the soil temperature is already at the 55 degrees is simply because of the fact that we've had a warmer winter than we've had in previous past years. So let me go ahead and grab that thermometer and we'll see exactly what the soil temperature is. Hopefully this rain goes ahead and stops just to give me enough time to be able to put down that pre-emergent today. We're just gonna have to wait and find out. So hang on a minute. All right, guys, so this is my actual thermometer here. As you guys can see here, it's kind of going up just because I had it in a little bit of a cold spot. But basically all it is a meat thermometer. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and stick this into the soil so that way we can get an actual reading of how warm the soil temperature is. Now, whenever you're taking a reading of the actual soil temperature, you got to make sure you understand something here. It's not about what it would be in one day, because the temperature is going to fluctuate from day to day. So really what you're looking at is a 55-degree average. Now, why is 55 degrees the magic number? The reason why you want to get your pre-emergent down before your soil temperatures actually reach the 55 degrees is because the worst weed you can have in a Bermuda lawn is crabgrass. And crabgrass will germinate at 55 degrees and higher. So you definitely want to get that pre-emergent into the ground. So that way, if there are any crabgrass seeds in the ground, yes, they're going to start to germinate, but that pre-emergent is going to stop the growth and they're pretty much going to die off. So let's go ahead and actually take a look at my lawn here and see what the actual soil temperature is. So I already kind of popped it in the ground there. All right, so as you guys can see here right now, it just popped to 55 degrees. So I'm going to give it another second here just to see if it actually drops down any more than that. But I am right there. I am right at that 55 degrees. I would have much rather been a couple degrees cooler, but it is what it is at this point. And I don't even know if it's going to drop any less than that. Go ahead and give it another second here, too. Nope, I think we're going to be at exactly 55 degrees. So when I measured the actual soil temperature yesterday or day before, I think it was like 54.9. So it's pretty much the same thing. It's about 55 degrees. So hopefully, I'm able to get it down soon enough. If I do get any crabgrass, I can simply pluck it out. There's other ways for me to be able to control it if I happen to be a little bit too late here. But at the same time, it's really important that you still get your pre-emergent down right now. That way you could do your due diligence when it comes to actually preventing as many weeds as possible. All right, guys, so what I'm going to do is I think I'm going to risk it. I'm going to actually throw out the pre-emergent even though it's starting to rain a little bit, just because it keeps start, stop. And really when it's starting, it's so light, it's barely even a sprinkle. So I think we're going to be okay. There's not really very much moisture that's really hitting the ground. So I'm going to go ahead and mix up my Prodiamine. Let me go ahead and show you guys what that looks like. So regardless of what type of backpack sprayer you own, it's really important that you're using the correct tips when it comes to your application. Now, in the case of a pre-emergent, you would want to use what they refer to as a floodjet tip. As you guys can see here, this is a floodjet tip that's made by TeeJet. And the way this is basically going to work is really going to produce a heavy droplet. So that way the pre-emergent can really drop down into the canopy, get to the soil, so that way it can go to work once it's watered in. Now, if you're applying any type of herbicide or fertilizer or any type of foliar application, you want to use what they refer to as a foliar tip. And again, this one is also made by TeeJet. Both of these I'll go ahead and link in the description below. But what this is basically going to do is this is going to allow you to be able to produce a really fine mist, so that way it'll really capture and stick onto the blades of the grass. Now, one of the tips I also have on here, just as a backup here, let me go ahead and pull this off here, is what they refer to as an air induction tip, as you guys can see here. Now, the way I would really use this tip, even though I'm probably not going to use this for most applications, is it does produce a mist and a heavier droplet. So this might work really well whenever you're trying to apply a foliar application, but perhaps it's really windy, and this is really going to allow you to be able to get that to the actual product. Again, not a tip I necessarily recommend that you have to have. You definitely want to make sure you have both the foliar tip and the floodjet tip, because those are the ones you're mainly going to use for most of your applications. So with that, let's go ahead and mix up the tank sprayer. Guys, the rain gods are not on my side today. Now it's starting to come down some more. Oh, man. Oh, my goodness. Well, what are you going to do? Well, what I'll probably do, let the rain pass, see what happens tomorrow. You know, for me, I'm going to have to wait overnight. For you guys, it's going to be like this. It'll be tomorrow. All right, guys, so it's the next day. And what I'm going to do, there's another change of plans. My plan is to actually continue and do the cleanup pass. And what I'm thinking I'm going to do is I'm going to break out my Mclane. And the reason why I'm choosing to use my Mclane is I kind of did a quick pass just to see what the height of cut looked like. And I really like the setting on the Mclane for this cleanup pass. So what I plan on doing is I'm going to go ahead and do this cleanup pass. I'm not going to use the catcher. Now, I know that sounds crazy, because my plan, after I go ahead and actually cut down all the grass, is I'm going to bring my Ego rotary mower and suck it all up. I think that'll be a lot quicker, even though I'll have to do 2 separate passes. I think it'll definitely do a much better job in really getting all those clippings out of the grass before I throw down my pre-emergent. With that, let's go ahead and take a look here at the Mclane, just so I can show you guys the height of cut that I'm going to be going with. All right, so as you guys can see here, the setting that I have it to is actually 1 notch above the lowest setting. Now, a lot of people believe that this hole right here is an actual setting, and technically it's not. Now, I know people have used it, but there's only 1 lower setting here. So with that, I think this is going to be somewhere around 5/8, and I think that's going to work out for this particular application. So with that, let's go ahead and get with our cleanup pass. All right, guys, so one of the things I just want to point out is the Scarify and Verticut actually made a really big difference in really thinning out the turf, as it's supposed to. But now that I'm using my Mclane on this turf, it's taken off quite a bit, as you guys saw on the previous video clips, but it's not really struggling to get through that really dense, thick turf, where I know that would have happened had I not done the Verticut and the Scarify. So it's going to make it that much easier for me to be able to do any future scalps. It's going to make it that much easier to really thin out my lawn when it's really growing too thick. So I'm really excited and very optimistic about the Catalyst this year and really being able to take my lawn to the next level. So just wanted to point that out. Again, the scalp with the Mclane is not necessarily the best mower to scalp. You know, I prefer to use like my buddy's True Cut or something like that, because that just powers through it all. But if you don't have one of those type of machines, or even if you have the Catalyst, you know, your Catalyst is not going to work as hard in actually being able to do that scalp if you've done the Verticut and you've done the Scarify, because that's really, again, going to help thin out that turf to make it a little bit easier for your lawnmower to really just be able to push through and be able to get the scalp done. Whew. I gotta tell you guys, I'm looking at it here and it's so satisfying. It just looks so clean. Let me go ahead and show you guys here. Not too bad, not too bad. Liking that Mclane stripe action. Let me go ahead and turn it around. All right, guys, so like I said, I am gonna have to bring my Eagle rotary mower and kind of clean up the whole lawn here, because obviously I have POA. I don't want to let those seeds be able to drop down into the canopy and come back next year. Now, one of the things that is interesting, if you notice here, this area here is starting to green up. Now, this is also where I used the thermometer as well on purpose, because I knew more than likely this was going to be the warmest part of my lawn, just because I saw the green up there. But I gotta tell you, even though I've got a lot of clippings on the lawn here, once we suck all this up, it's gonna look on point. All right, guys, so one of the things I'm gonna do, and I know this might sound kind of strange, I'm actually gonna change the height of cut on the Eagle rotary mower. All right, so as you guys can see here, I have it set to the number 2 position. And the reason why I'm not using the number 1 position is I've heard this before. I don't know if it was on Doc's channel or just somewhere else online when I was watching a YouTube video, but in order for a rotary mower really to do its best when it comes to sucking up debris, it needs to have airflow going under it. And the more airflow is going to create that vacuum action. So, you know, I don't know if it's going to make a big difference, but the bottom line is I am not cutting off any of the grass. So I know it won't hurt by changing the height of cut. I just kind of figured it might do a better job in picking up more of the clippings than if I use the number 1 setting. All right, guys, so I didn't put the entire rotary mow on video just because I think you know what a rotary mower does and how it works. So let's go ahead and take a look here and see how well it did in cleaning up the lawn. Not too bad, not too bad. Let me go ahead and turn it around. All right, so I went ahead and mowed in this direction, but I scalped in that direction there. And it wasn't necessarily for any particular reason. I kind of figured it might do a better job in actually picking up those clippings. But for those of you that may or may not have noticed, Dwayne, did you really use the Eagle roller when picking up those clippings? I did. So for those of you that are wondering why, hate to break it to you, if you have to ask why, you're not really a lawn enthusiast. But it did do a pretty good job in laying down some stripes, so can't complain. So with that, gotta go inside, get some rest, and we'll come back and finally complete this project that I've been working on these last couple videos. All right, guys, so I just want to take a minute here and kind of talk to you guys about the different type of options you have when it comes to a pre-emergent. Now, I think the first thing you want to decide is whether or not you want to go with the granular or whether or not you want to go with the liquid. And people say, Dwayne, what's the difference? Which will give me the best result? Well, I got to tell you, it depends on what you feel most comfortable with. If you're not very comfortable or don't have a backpack sprayer, granular is really going to be your only way to go. And there's nothing wrong with that. You can get a phenomenal result as long as you follow your label rates. Now, when it comes to which one is actually better, there's a huge case to be made that is actually better if you use a liquid, because you can be that much more accurate with it and your distribution should be a lot more consistent. Now, once you figure that out, and now all you're deciding is what type of active ingredient to go with, Prodiamine, like I'm using in this video, is a very good pre-emergent. I've had very good success with it, but believe it or not, it's not necessarily always the preferred one of choice when it comes to Bermuda owners for the spring season. A lot of people believe you should be going with dithiopyr as your active ingredient. And the reason why they say dithiopyr is better for Bermuda in the springtime is because there is some reach back capability. Now again, at 55 degrees, you're really trying to prevent that crabgrass. But if you do have some breakthrough, dithiopyr actually has the ability to kill baby crabgrass after it's already started to germinate. as where with Prodiamine, it will not. So dithiopyr is probably a better preemergent if you're a little bit late in throwing down your preemergent. If you've thrown it down in plenty of time, go with Prodiamine. But ultimately, the choice is yours. And as long as you follow the label rates, you should get a phenomenal result. But the one thing I tell everybody when it comes to a preemergent, it's not necessarily going to guarantee a 100% weed-free lawn. As you guys had seen on my channel here, I've used pre-emergent year after year, and I still have weeds. And that's just a reality for some of us. Some people have better success than others, but there's so many different factors to determine why you have weeds. You know, in some cases, not necessarily your lawn, it's your neighbor's lawn. In some cases, just the areas in which you live, where you have some weeds that are a lot more aggressive than maybe in other parts of the country. So really, don't get discouraged if you do still have weeds after throwing down a pre-emergent. The important thing to remember is if you didn't use any pre-emergent at all, I guarantee you it'll be 10 times worse. So with that, let's go ahead and get back to the rest of the video. All right, so this we'll be using is our Prodiamine. That is a water dispersible granular. So the amount I'm going to go with is actually the full rate. I'm going to go with 0.83, or actually I'll probably go 0.8 ounces for every gallon of water. And that 1 gallon of water will cover 1,000 square feet. So what we're going to do is going to add 3.2 ounces to 4 gallons of water, and that will cover me for 4,000 square feet. Then I'll come back again and do a second fill up so I can get the rest of my yard. All right, so I got my little digital scale here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and actually use a little cup there and go ahead and zero that out. Now I do have it set to ounces there. I'm gonna give it a second here, make sure we're zeroed out. Okay, so now, like I said, I'm gonna add 3.2 ounces. Whoa. All right, so that's 1.4. I'm going to go ahead and add that in. Got to keep track here. We'll call that 12. So again, that's going to now be 2.6 ounces. And that's about close enough. All right, so now I got my little paint mixer here. You can pick these up at Home Depot. They're only a couple dollars, but they work really well to be able to stir up any chemicals in your tank sprayer. I'm just gonna go ahead and disconnect this here. Oh. All right, just gonna go ahead and leave my paint stick in there just so I don't get that all over the place. And now I'll go ahead and add in our water. All right, so now I got in the 4 gallons of water. Now I'm just going to go ahead and grab my paint stick again. Go ahead and reattach it to my drill. And we'll go ahead and give it another mix. So I think that'll about do it. Let me go ahead and just remove the paint stick here. And one of the things I like to do is I go ahead and just grab my garden hose, set it to a mist setting. And that way, I can just clean off my paint stick without getting a bunch of Prodiamine everywhere. All right, so now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and put on my flood jet tip. Now I'll go ahead and turn it on. And all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna spray this back into the tank. And the reason why I'm doing that, is for that right there. Oh, see guys, I didn't have it all the way secure there. There we go. You guys saw it leaking out there. It's not what we want. But once I get this kind of cycle through, the point of it is so that way as soon as I start using the sprayer, I already have the Prodiamine at the tip all ready to go. All right, so just gonna use a little rag here to clean up where it's spilled out. There we go. And now I'm gonna go ahead and just put in the filter and go ahead and just put the lid back on here. All right, so now that I got it all mixed up, I gotta tell you, I keep running into potential problems. All I was trying to put down is Prodiamine, but the reality is it's a little bit windy. It's not ideal, but because of the fact that it's a heavier droplet, I think I'm all right. So not concerned about that. But now, let's go ahead and lay it down. I'm going to kind of give you guys a couple different views here. I'm going to go ahead and show you guys as I'm actually spraying it. And then I'll kind of give you a POV of me actually putting down a Prodiamine as well, just so you can see how I'm applying it to the grass. So with that, let's get on to our spraying. And don't forget, PPE. Make sure you have it. All right, guys, so I think the walking pace that I'm at right now is pretty good. I have about a gallon left in my backpack. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna fill up the remaining 3 gallons, and that will give me 4 gallons to be able to cover the rest of my lawn. Now, when I'm kind of looking at it here, and I'll turn the camera around in just a second here, you may be curious, well, Dwayne, how fast, or how do you know how fast you should be walking? And I'm not doing it in this video, but anytime you do have a backpack sprayer, what you need to do is you do need to calibrate it. When I say calibration, it doesn't mean you're configuring it. What calibration basically means is that you're able to match your walking speed with the amount of liquid that's coming out of your backpack sprayer. All right, and there's a lot of different videos on how to actually calibrate your backpack sprayer, but basically what you're doing is you're coming up with a calculation that tells you how much time you have to throw down 1,000 square feet. And if you're not able to actually cover that 1,000 square feet in the amount of time that you have, that tells you you're walking too slow. Or if you cover it faster than that time allows, that means you're walking too fast. So eventually it turns into muscle memory. You basically start to understand how fast you need to walk based on your backpack sprayer. That way I know I'm putting down the right amount of product and I'm not over or under applying any type of liquid that I'm applying to my lawn. All right, so with that, let me go ahead and show you guys how far I am on the lawn here. All right, so for right now, I went ahead and sprayed all of this right here, and I'm pretty much about here when it comes to my actual application. So now what I need to do is be able to apply the rest of my lawn here. And this is about 4,000 square feet. So with that, I'm gonna load up the remaining 3 gallons on my backpack sprayer, and we'll go ahead and be able to treat the rest of my lawn. All right, guys, so one of the things I do want to point out is when I did the last 4,000 square feet on my lawn, after filling up my backpack sprayer, I did pick up my walking pace just slightly. And the reason why I did that was because of the fact that when I did the first 3,000 square feet, I thought I had about a gallon left in my backpack sprayer. I didn't. I only had about a half a gallon. So what does that mean? That means I was walking just slightly too slow to cover the 0.8 ounces of Prodiamine per 1,000 square feet, meaning I over applied. Now, being that I over-applied, I don't think I'm gonna necessarily have any problems because I wasn't over-applying at a dramatic rate. However, if I applied the 4 gallons of solution to maybe 2,000 square feet, for example, that is actually gonna be doubling the application rate, and I'll be putting down 1.6 ounces of prodiamine per 1,000 square feet, and you do not wanna do that. That's just way too heavy. So on the second round, like I said, I sped up the walking pace. It all evened out, so it worked out great. So one of the things you can do as a safeguard is you can back down on the rate if you're still not 100% comfortable with your walking pace. And the reason why I recommend this is because that way, if you walk too slow, you still are gonna be within the limits of that particular application. However, if you walk too fast, that's still okay. You're just putting down at a lighter rate and you can just go over the area another time. However, once I hit that max rate and I now went over it, there's no way to correct that. So that's why I say, again, calibrate your backpack sprayer, back down on your rate until you're that much more comfortable with your walking pace so you get the best result without over applying. All right, guys, so I'm gonna go ahead and run my irrigation now so that way I can start to get that prodiamine into the soil. It cannot wait any longer. All right, guys, so I gotta tell you, these last 3 videos, it's been a lot of work. You know, I'm glad I didn't do one video. I'm glad I kept it into separate segments where we had the verticut video, the Scarify video, and the cleanup and pre-emergent video that you're watching right now. So again, absolutely excited to be able to put the catalyst to work. It's really what I wanted to do since I actually picked up the catalyst, but you know, I picked it up towards the end of the growing season last year, and I really did not have an opportunity to use those cartridges the way I wanted to. And I've also been keeping you guys in suspense because up to this point, you only saw the 7-blade reel and the 10-blade reel. Now, my catalyst is gonna get a lot of use during this growing season, as you can imagine. Now, as far as the scalp is concerned, I think I'm pretty good with the height I'm at right now because I don't necessarily plan on mowing any lower than 3/4 inch. Now, I might start out the season at 5/8 just because of the fact that, you know, it's not gonna be growing very aggressively at that point. So I might scalp it down just a little bit more. I think right now it is probably about 5/8, maybe in some areas just a 1/2 inch. But I may take the catalyst, yes, the catalyst, and run it over my entire lawn at 1/2 inch. And that way, I really set myself up, so regardless of whether or not I'm cutting at 5/8, cutting at 3/4, which 3/4 is my goal, you know, for this coming growing season. Now, as the season goes on, as it happened last year, I ended up raising the height of cut. But at the same time, last year, I didn't even use any plant growth regulator. I think I'm definitely gonna have to go with the plant growth regulator and definitely want to, especially now that I have a verticutter where I can really keep the thickness of the lawn under control. So with that, I really hope you guys enjoyed all the videos I put together for you here. Now, this is just the start. Obviously, we haven't even got into the growing season. So in some of my future videos, because this is just the tip of the iceberg, I want to be able to put together some more catalyst videos, obviously. I want to be able to do a backlap for you guys. And I've been talking to California Trimmer this last year, and they have a couple things that is very, very appealing to me that I might be able to try out for you guys this growing season. But only time will tell on that. No promises. But I do have some other things lined up for my California Trimmer Classic that I think you guys are really going to enjoy. So there's a lot of stuff. All I need from you guys is to continue to like my videos, subscribe to my channel if you haven't, and remember, be excellent and party on.